Welcome back to the Think Small podcast. My guest today is Kayla with SweetBio. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. So I don't know much about what it's like to go from the thought to a product and then getting a product approved by the FDA. So Kayla's going to be our subject matter expert on this and sharing all of the steps and what it goes along with getting a product through all the rigorous testing, the financial piece that goes involved with that, and then taking something to market. I was listening to our pre-call, and I think on our pre-call, I sort of underplayed how much time and effort you've put into this. Like, it seemed like almost effortless, right? Like, you're like, yeah, we've been doing this for 20 years. I'm like, oh, no problem. Like, I'll just blow past that. But tell me about this journey, right? And why it's such a passion of yours, and how tell me about the company.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate the opportunity to share our story. I know every time our story gets shared, patients get better. And so, we're in the business of trying to make top care accessible to the masses. We're starting in wound care. So when you think about wound care, it's a pretty broad word, whether that's diabetic wounds that are traditionally known to be tough to heal, or recovering from a Mohs surgery procedure after skin cancer removal, or even in an orthopedic site. If you have a hip or knee, you're dealing with a line where that incision is with sutures. Those are all wounds. And so when I originally heard about this idea to take known materials, collagen and Manuka honey, to create something that is extraordinarily, top performing, but could be affordable, we just thought, wow, like, we have the ability to impact not just, lives, but hopefully change the trajectory for families. The inventor of the technology is my brother. And, 10 years ago, he had been working on the tech for some time. He's a biomedical PhD tissue regeneration expert. And he brought it to me and said, I think this can really help people. Do you think that this could be a business? We asked some really fundamental questions, and that's my background, is on the business side. But that was the genesis of, wow, this could really make a difference. And so fast forward 10 years later, we've taken it, from lab to launch, and starting to see so many people get better.
That's awesome. And what like a cool moment, right? To be working together as a family on this, family business and family project. Was that something that you ever really saw happening? Like,
Yeah, we get mixed we get mixed feelings when folks hear, that you work with a sibling. Isaac will always say that we're a business family when many folks say family business. But really it's the journey of a lifetime. I think we grew up with healthy competition. He was into the sciences. I love the science of commerce, and we went our two ways. I worked at Target Corporate for many years and became fascinated with consumer behavior, how you build loyalty. Target has such a fan base, and so I loved how that worked, and he loved the ability to create products that could literally regenerate the body, especially after our mother had a hip replacement. He raised his hand and said, I'd love to create materials like that. So we kind of took 10 years going our separate paths and building expertise. And then I remember being out in San Francisco and calling him and saying, wouldn't it be cool if we built something? Wouldn't it be awesome if we could combine our forces and really, do something that makes a difference? And at that point, we just highly respected each other's domain expertise. And we've always said since the beginning, Sweet is our empathy. It's designing products that help people, and bio is backed by the science. Everything we say is backed by a data point. We are always aligned in that. We may not always agree on everything, but we are aligned in what the mission and vision are and where we want to take this company. And so that has allowed us to 10 years still be thriving as a brother-sister team and grow the team.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I love it. Really, it's a great story. But it does sound, I mean, from where you're at now, it feels like it was almost effortless, right? Now where you're at, it's like, oh, it was just always clandestine. It was meant to be, right? But I'm sure there were bumps along the road. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what it's like when your brother came to you with this product and you're like, all right, how do we make this a reality?
I mean, there are bumps every hour of every day. And then there are mountains every month, and then there's kind of mountains hidden in the cloud that happen every year. I think as an entrepreneur, you live quite a roller coaster. As an entrepreneur in the biotech and medical device space, some of the milestones are bigger in terms of expenses and riskier because it's quite out of your control when you're working with the federal government to try to get a product on the market. So we knew from the beginning we had a choice. Do we want to be more of a cosmetic product that sat on a shelf, or do we want to be a clinician-backed product? And to compete, that's a business decision, right? If we want to compete, let's put as many moats around the business as possible. So we decided, let's go doctor-backed to say this is the product that doctors trust. And if we want to reach down into the patient, over the counter later, great, we can do that. So we made that decision, which meant we were going to be an FDA regulated, Medicare regulated, and obviously patent office regulated technology and product. Our first big hurdle, how do you make something from the lab in commercial manufacturing? And it needs to be replicated. It cannot just be produced. It needs to be produced to a level of control that it is identical every single time it comes out. And then once you get that, then you can kind of sit for the final exam, do the tests and get the FDA clearance. And we didn't get through the first time. And that was wild experience. I remember holding a little baby at the time. I've had 3 kids on this journey and thinking, what am I over my head here? What exactly are we trying to do? But we knew that this was the right technology and that it was going to make a difference. And so we held what we called the Phoenix Summit, right? To say, how are we going to bring this technology through the FDA so that we can get it out there? And we built a plan to say, okay, wound care is the place we need to be. This is what those indicate. This is what those tests look like. This is how we're going to show that data. And then we got through the FDA. Since then, there's been a pandemic, and I'll give you, one more example. We were about to launch our product and we got clearance in 2019, the first time in the middle. And then the pandemic, obviously into 2020, the macro environment changed a bit. And so what we saw when we were doing a study was products being used by doctors in facilities like a clinic treating diabetic ulcers required a patient who likely had diabetes, for example, come in. During the pandemic, that was difficult because they were also the most susceptible to contracting COVID or to contracting something that could make life very difficult for them. So then they didn't get care. And what we learned was while we got people better when they were treated in the office, a lot of people didn't get better because they couldn't get to the office. And that was the concept behind this at-home product that patients can apply, making it simple and affordable and accessible, delivered to the home. So we've been able to take the challenges. It sounds effortless, but it was a lot of thought on how might we position ourselves to be the easiest, to be one of the best, and make sure that it's affordable. So whatever happens in the macro environment, we become like an elastic. So it's been a wild ride. It's wonderful to be on the market now. We're very excited, but it hasn't been without turmoil.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on the pre-call you had mentioned that when you're going through a procedure for skincare, for skin cancer, essentially they're removing layers of the dermis, and then they leave you with an open wound, and then the treatment plan for that is Vaseline. Is that what you said?
Yes. So again, what's interesting about wound care is most folks who have Mohs skin cancer, and that is the surgical removal of already identified skin cancer. They'll take a layer, put it under a microscope, see cells. If they're cancerous, you take another layer. That is the gold standard. It is highly effective to remove skin cancer. So you walk into a Mohs surgery center or a dermatology center with a certified Mohs surgeon with cancer, you leave cancer free. Unfortunately, a lot of these surgeries happen on places that the sun touches. So legs, ears, scalp, where there isn't a lot of skin to close it and stitch it up. And so what that leaves is an open wound. Many times it's not called a wound, it's a surgery site, but inherently it does stay open and takes, months to close. And the standard, no matter which site you look at, whether it's Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, John Hopkins, the standard is Vaseline. So what we learned was, wow, we could really make a difference in these wounds that are prone to infection, that cause significant pain and turmoil in the patient's life. So we did a clinical trial at Vanderbilt with Mohs surgery wounds that were left open, and we saw we reduced pain, and we had wonderful wound closure rates in weeks. And so we were thrilled to see the results. And so it became an education with our clinicians to say, hey, did you know that this is available? And what it does is it helps fill that wound. You'll see that that patient's risk goes down. It also helps with pain. So you'll hear that patient be happier about their, experience. And so, and the way it works is, that surgery happens in the office, and the clinician writes, think of it as a mail order prescription for our product. So the patient will get the supplies they need delivered to their home, which includes these dissolvable patches of Veris. So it's collagen and Manuka honey combined, and within 24 to 48 hours, it's going to dissolve as that wound progresses. So we've tried to make it pretty simple for the patients to get better. But Mohs surgery is one where we just see this massive opportunity to improve the patient experience.
It's fantastic. I thank you for sharing that story. And all right, so you've got this product, you're trying to get it out, you're trying to grow the reach, right? And that seems like another hurdle, another mountain, if you will, right? So what's your strategy with approaching the large markets, right? Like getting this, coast to coast in every American that needs it, right?
I mean, that has been the question of 2025 for us. We know first and foremost, we need a technology that works. And that is the price of entry for us, is it needs to work and needs to work extraordinarily well. So we spent years ensuring that the product works. Then we spent a couple years making the product easy and affordable, to put it through a channel that's covered by Medicare and covered by many commercial plans, and to ensure that a patient who was even, like my grandfather, English isn't his first language, so how do we make this so easy that someone like him who's 90 years old can put the product on? So making it work, making it easy to use, and making affordable unlocks the ability to go have the conversation with the masses, right? I have never wanted to launch this product until we could say, you don't even need to hear from me, and you're going to get better. And so what we've been doing is micro tests. So once we said, okay, we've got really good data, we've done this usability study to make it easy, we now have all the checks from insurance to ensure that it's covered. We've partnered with some of the greatest in the industry, whether that's Cardinal Health, McKesson, Byram and Prism are large wound companies that provide supplies, and recently working with companies like Adapt Health and Curatech. Like, they allow us to get the message out there now that this product is available. But I'm a marketing nerd. Like, I love borrowing tactics from other industries. And so if you even look at our brand, it doesn't look like a medical device brand. It looks like a consumer brand. So for us, the approach to the masses was always to keep the patient at the center. And that meant that they should feel no worry when they come to our site. They should feel like that this is something that makes their life easier. And so all the messaging, all the wraparound branding is to show that credibility, but also to make the patient feel welcomed in this experience that's been very technical before. And so from an outreach standpoint, we've started with clinicians, and we've had just such a warm reception of clinicians wanting to work with us and prescribe it for their patients. And then looking into 2026, you'll see more messaging to the patients from us. We obviously want to talk with clinicians first so that they are comfortable with the technology, but we want patients to know that this is a solution for them that can help them get better.
Yeah, I feel like that's another hurdle, right? Is like changing the mindset around what is standard care. Because like you ask, if I don't know, for instance, like Tylenol is big in the news right now, right? My
Right.
parents, long-term Tylenol takers, right? Like, and to convince them otherwise that it's a harmful product would be challenging, to convince them to go from, Vaseline in a Band-Aid or Neosporin in a Band-Aid to your product would take a significant amount of education, right? So, making it approachable for the end user and the consumer, and then making sure that your clinicians are advising it is paramount, right?
Yeah, and I think for any business folks listening in, right, like
Again,
thinking
right? Like,
about your products on the diffusion of innovation curve, which is a bell curve. It starts low, it goes high in the middle, and then, ends low. And in the beginning of this curve, your market, right, you've got those early adopters, those cowboys and cowgirls that are willing to try anything. And, another way to think about it is a new restaurant opens and you go to it, you're an early adopter. A new device comes out, you buy it without a bunch of 5-star reviews, you're early adopter. uh, the mass market in the middle are folks that want to hear from other people before they make that decision, and towards the end it's like, I want 500,000 stars, reviews. I want to make sure everyone is talking about it, and that's a laggard, that's a late adopter. So when you're launching a product, to your point, to get adoption, focusing in the beginning of getting those early users, because they're willing to sacrifice the experience. You may not have everything buttoned up, but you're going to learn so much. And then what you learn from that, you then carry into the masses, and then the masses help you get the later adopters. And so one thing we knew really early on was that the masses trust their peers. And so what you'll see from us is that having clinicians talk about our product, not just the company, that's our way of trying to say, hey, these are your peers saying this, and they're excited about it too, give us a shot.
Yeah, awesome. It seems like you're wearing so many hats, right? From the like testing, from the FDA and dealing with the federal government, and then from dealing with the marketing and the business side of it. It must be exhausting. It really, but exciting. I mean, it's like your days must be very unique and individual, and by hour, it's like, all right, I got to put on this hat, I got to change it up, switch that part of the brain. But it seems like you've got your hands all over it.
Yeah, at the beginning you have to, because you don't have any more hands. They're just yours and your founders. And I think as we grow, learning to allow others to shine on the team. We've just added to the team, and it's just so incredible to see them shine. And it's challenging, I think, once you do have your hands in everything, to start to let things go. But I think at the end of the day, if you pay attention to the things that give you energy, like more energy at the end after you did it than when you started, then you realize, okay, this is really where I should be spending my time, as long as it adds value to the company, right? So I think I've been able to see, okay, yeah, I'm not particularly the one that's going to be managing inventory, while, I can, and I know how. I shouldn't be the one that is, organizing the raw materials and the runs and the sterilizing and how things are placed in the office. But thinking about how we might message to the market that's believable and that's surprising and delightful, and thinking of new ways to have a sample experience, those are things that I finish and I'm like, oh, that's so fun. What's next, right? And so I think, in business, especially in entrepreneurship, if you're feeling drained at the end of it, I've got questions, because the work is hard. The mission is authentic and noble, but if you're feeling drained every day, it's very easy to get exhausted. And so that's something we pay close attention to, is just how, taking a pulse on the team and energy levels, because we should be getting some energy back. I tell the team, I love my job. I don't love it every hour of every day, but I truly do. And, when we get those patient stories, or we get a clinician that just says, man, this wound has been stalled and I haven't been able to move it forward, and your product did it. I think it just kind of lifts the whole team.
Yeah, it's super cool. I love that you really love what you do. It definitely comes across. So I always like to end these with a note of optimism, something that you maybe have coming down the pike in the next 12 months. Where do you see the company going from here? What's the next step, and what's something that you're looking forward to in the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, we've always said making top care accessible, right? That everyone deserves access to a healthier tomorrow. We started by creating products that work really well, that are available and that are easy. Our Veris product, Veris means truth. We wanted to bring top tier tech to a low cost category, to open up treatment to 90% of the market that doesn't get much more than Vaseline and a bandage. But access has always been at the core of who we are and what we do. And so over the counter is what's next, right? If you can take out the RX requirement where appropriate, there's so much care that's needed between a bandage and an ER visit, where we would love to be able to approach that market with a solution. So I'm thrilled we already have FDA clearance for an over-the-counter use. And so that's what you'll see coming from us in 2026, which is pretty exciting.
That's fantastic. So if there was somebody that's listening to the podcast, either a clinician, a practitioner, or a patient, and they wanted to find out more information about the product, find somebody that would be willing to prescribe them, how can they reach out to you, the company, or how can they find this product? And, how can they find
Yes.
SweetBio?
Yes, well, you can learn more. We have a product specific site for our hero product, which is Veris. That website is recover with Veris, VERIS.com. You can always email info@sweetbio.com. If you're a clinician, we would love to chat with you. If you're a patient, please know that this is prescribed by your clinician, but we're happy to support you to see if there's a way we can work with your clinician to get it for you. But we'd love to hear from you. Our goal is to get this out there so that patients and clinicians know that this option is available. It works. It's extraordinary. We're just small, but we're mighty. And so we're excited to keep scaling.
Kayla, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate you being a guest. And yeah, this was fantastic. I hope to have you back in the future so you can tell me all about what 2026 has brought. But I hope you have a great rest of the year. Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate you. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, absolutely.